BWI Daily Edition here, recapping a big night for Penn State basketball. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. It was a long night at the Bryce Jordan Center. Penn State winning in double overtime over Iowa, 90-86. Dave Eckert was there last night for the whole thing. He's going to give us what he thought. Dave, how you doing this morning? You a little jet lagged from that game last night?
Maybe a little T, Frank, but I'll tell you what, the new intro music that you've got going is waking me right up. I'm ready to go run 15 miles. I need that as my alarm to wake me up in the morning.
This is your pre-workout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Everything's a journey, right? And the BWI Daily Edition, the evolution of the show, is absolutely no different. That I appreciate that people notice things like that, and that all that work is paying off on the daily. So welcome to the show. And Dave is about to die working out for the first time this year, I'm assuming. Do you work out, Dave?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, not at all.
I'll tell you, though, music absolutely can do that for you. It can, like,
sure.
not make you great at sports or great at exercise, but, like, the other day, was not having a great day, and I had a song running through my head, so I put that song on, and then I listened to the whole album it was on, and I had, like, it turned my day around. So hopefully the intro, what I'm saying is, the BWI Daily Edition and the intro music can turn your day around, so it's a great reason to watch the show and subscribe.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, listen to us while you work out and feel good about yourself because I don't.
Now, I don't know the rest of the show is going to get you pumped up to deadlift, but maybe we can bring that energy today. Maybe we can lift somebody out of that. So let's talk about the game last night, because that was a high energy affair. Let's start at the end with the final play and then the overtime, because that was some crazy stuff at the end of regulation. Take us through what happened in the final minute and a half and then the final play.
Yeah, so Penn State kind of looks like they're going to coast, right? You know, I think they had a 6-point lead in the final minute, and Iowa trimmed it to 2 and sent Sam Sessoms to the free throw line, I think for 1-1 with about 10 seconds left. He hits the first. I'm sorry, it was a 1-point lead at this time, excuse me. So Sam Sessom hits the first to make it a 2-point lead, then misses the second. Iowa brings the ball down the floor. I think it was Jordan Bohannon, if memory serves, just kind of chucks a three that gets nowhere close. And Keegan Murray makes this absolutely just ridiculous play. He kind of contorts his body, tips the ball up and in with 0.1 seconds left to tie the game and send the game to overtime. Yeah, just ridiculous. You know, it wasn't a great crowd at the Bryce Jordan Center anyway, but it just felt like a library at that point. It was dead. I was sure Penn State was going to lose the first overtime by 10 points.
Just because of that play, right? The absolute deflation of winning the game, playing good defense, making a bad shot happen, and then, as Micah Shrewsberry called it, one of the best plays he's seen, I think, is what he said last night in the post-game press conference about that play to send the game further.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and, this is a Penn State team that had lost 3 in a row, too, right? I mean, it's not – it's easy to feel deflated. And really, I think that they did. You saw it kind of at the beginning of overtime. They didn't really have it. They had to kind of wake themselves up a little bit. And to their credit, they definitely did. They made some big shots. So, yeah, it was a great game. There were great plays on both ends. I think, Micah Shrewsberry kind of explained that tip, and he's like, that guy is going to be in the NBA next year for exactly that reason. And he's right. So yeah. It was awesome. It was a really entertaining game.
So who were the guys that were key in the overtime then that got Penn State the win?
Yeah, so you got to point first, I think, to Miles Dredd, who made, frankly, a shot he had no business making. I think Penn State was down 3 in the first overtime with maybe 15 seconds to go. Catches the ball at the top of the key, has guys all over him, just kind of fades away and chucks it, and it goes in. I think he said after the game that he couldn't even see the rim when he took the shot. So clearly it was just a little bit of a prayer that was answered. And then Greg Lee and John Harrar were both awesome in overtime and awesome throughout the whole game. I was a little bit late to join you, T. Frank. I missed the E invite because I was looking up a stat. I believe that this Greg Lee had 16 points and John Harrar had 19, and I believe that is the first time since at least 2004, 2005 that Penn State has had two players who are over 6'9" have 15 or more points in the same game. So a little bit of a niche stat, but Penn State doesn't have bigs that score points.
No, but
like,
your point
ever.
is valid. So it sounds convoluted, but what you're saying is two bigs in the same game to take over like that. That does not happen. Penn State at most has one historically.
Yeah, and really, they've been lucky to have that.
Yeah.
You think about some of the bigs that Penn State has run out there, like, I don't know. So they've got a couple guys that can fill it up, and they needed to because they didn't shoot well from three. So they needed those guys, and John and Greg gave them really big games.
Seth Lundy did as well, right?
Yep.
As the small forward, as the three, he was out there on both sides, right? Offense and defense.
Yes, sir. Yeah, he played really well defensively. He was guarding Murray for most of the game. Really held him down in the first half. He did not do much in the first half. Kind of exploded in the second half and overtime. Ended up with 21 points. But if you're Penn State, you're getting 17 from Seth Lundy, and Iowa's getting 21 from Keegan Murray. I think Penn State will take that. That's a differential that Penn State can live with for sure. And Seth Lundy's been great. He's not super efficient on offense, but he's defending really well. He's kind of the volume scorer that Penn State needs. So yeah, he's been a really important piece.
What happened? So going back into the meat of the game, Penn State was in command early. It seemed with those guys on the interior. Doing a great job getting rebounds, putting the ball back, getting second chances, getting points. But there was a lull there at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second where Iowa really came back and took the lead, I think, at one point. So what happened in the middle of the game, and what did Micah Shrewsberry do to adjust where his team then got into a position where they should have won the game coasting away, but because of the way that things worked out, didn't quite get there?
Yeah, what happened was Fran McCaffrey's sons started to make a ton of threes. Patrick and I'm sorry, Connor. Sorry, I forgot the other fella's name. Patrick and Connor McCaffrey combined, I think, to make seven threes. Shooting over 50%. I think it was Connor who came to the game shooting like 15% and made, I think, 4 in a row at one point. So it was just kind of a little bit nonsensical. And really, Penn State had played well in the first half. Penn State played really, really well in the first half. And McCaffrey just made a bunch of threes at the end of the first half. And all of a sudden, Iowa was leading. But really, it was just more of the same. Down the stretch, Penn State went inside. The guy you're seeing on the screen there, Sam Sessoms, gave them some really creative finishes at the rim, kind of to complement the points they got from the bigs. There wasn't a whole lot of adjusting going on. I think Penn State just really kept doing what they were doing. They cut down, I think, on Iowa's 3-point rampage, and some of that I think was just kind of water leveling out a little bit. And yeah, they won the game.
We talked about on Monday how Penn State has a pretty short bench. They don't play a lot of players, and therefore they can't really afford a slump from any of their starters. They played a lot more guys on Monday, didn't they? And how did that affect the game? Or is that more of when the chips were down, they shortened the bench?
I think they shortened the bench a little bit when the chips were down. But you did see Caleb Dorsey, who I think we haven't seen in a while, actually. He got 6 minutes. You saw Dalian Johnson actually get the start, and I thought he looked pretty good. He usually doesn't play a whole lot, and he got a little bit of a back injury that held him out, unfortunately for him. But yeah, we didn't see Jelani White. Jelani White played 1 minute. He's usually a guy that plays a ton. I think Shrewsberry was just kind of riding his bigs. It was Lee and it was John Harrar, and it wasn't really anybody else. Those were his two. usually we'll see Giovanni Scott and Jelani White, and we didn't. I think probably because those guys were playing so well. It was a little bit of a weird game rotationally for Penn State for sure, but I think that they were able to get minutes off the bench from some guards, Sam Sessoms most notably. But yeah, it was a weird one. It was a weird one for the bigs. Greg Lee actually, I guess, technically came off the bench. It doesn't feel like it because he played most of the game, but he didn't start for the first time in a while. But yeah, rotationally, the main difference that I would point to is we saw a lot less of the third and fourth choice bigs. I'm not really sure why. Micah didn't really explain it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
He was asked about it, and they're just kind of brushed it off. But yeah, that'll be something to look for going forward, definitely.
So what was your takeaway with all of that happened? What was your takeaway from the game, and what can Penn State use going forward in the remaining part of their schedule?
It's one of those games that feels like it can be an inspiring win. Because look, I mean, there was some mental toughness shown there, absolutely. Iowa is a better team than Penn State. I don't think many people will debate that. They have better players than the players that Penn State has. They just do. Um, so, when you're able to, I guess, swing back when a team like that pegs you back, you're able to come back and you're able to close those deficits in overtime. You're able to make those big shots after you lose three in a row. That's big. That's important. And look, it shows you that they haven't quit.
Yeah.
I think that was something that I was looking for.
And playing at home helps too. You could see
Absolutely.
definitely that was a part of it.
No doubt. They've missed that because
Mm-hmm.
like you said, 3 games on the road consecutively, all losses, all against good teams. They've missed their home environment, even if the crowd wasn't amazing. But yeah, it's important. And they've got another tough road game against Wisconsin, who I think is atop the Big Ten right now. So yeah, that's not an easy game. And if you lose this one, you're 3-7. You've got to go to Wisconsin on Saturday. You'd like to be optimistic, but that's not a game that you would pick Penn State to win.
Right.
So all of a sudden you're 3-8 and you've unraveled a little bit. So I think this kind of stops that from happening. Even if you lose that Wisconsin game, you've got some easier games coming up. You can still kind of get yourself in a position to be competitive. So yeah, it's huge, big win.
So you mentioned Wisconsin is next. When's the next game, and what should Penn State fans expect from that one? You gave us a little bit of a preview, but you got anything more to say about Wisconsin and the matchup specifically between the two teams?
I expect slow basketball.
Oh, good.
Wisconsin is notorious for playing very slow basketball, and that's how Penn State has played this year too. So, there's kind of a game. It's a little bit of a cult hero-ish game for Penn State basketball in the 2011 Big Ten tournament where they beat Wisconsin, I think 36-33.
I remember that game.
to clinch more or less a spot in the NCAA tournament. And I'm not saying it's going to be that, but it's probably not going to be pretty. Wisconsin has probably the best player in the Big Ten in Johnny Davis. He's awesome. He's probably going to be Seth Lundy's guy, I would guess. So we'll see how Seth Lundy fares there. It's a tall task to go in there and win a game, but we'll see. We'll see if they can kind of scrape together the momentum. I think it's Saturday at 6:30, if I remember the time right. So big game. We'll see what they can do.
We'll switch gears here now and go to hockey, which, of course, you are our hockey correspondent. We haven't talked too much about the team, but they've been struggling so far this year. But we should follow up and see what's going on with Penn State hockey. Are they improving, and what's this season been like for the team?
Yeah, they are improving, and I think that's kind of what you want to see. Because there was a point this year, even 4 weeks ago, where I didn't know what they were. I didn't know where the wins were going to come from. The performances did not seem to be improving, and very clearly the performances are improving.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of started at the the turn of the calendar in the new year. They played Notre Dame, who is very good, very, very tough twice at home. Probably should have gotten a win in one of those games. They were unfortunate not to. Then they went to Michigan again, probably outplayed Michigan in both of those games. Michigan, by the way, has 4 of the first 5 draft picks in last year's NHL draft on its roster.
Well, yeah. There you go.
They're good at hockey. And Penn State outplayed them twice and didn't win either of those games, which, if you're sensing a theme, that's kind of what's been happening lately. But then they sweep Wisconsin, who stinks. Wisconsin is bad. And they get a shootout win against Big Ten leading Ohio State last Friday. Then they lose 6-0 on Saturday to the Buckeyes. So it's been a whirlwind. But they're playing better. Even in that 6-0 loss, I think they outshot Ohio State like 51-27 or something ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, that's part of Guy Godowski's strategy, kind of like Cale Sanderson, is score points, put the puck in the net, make sure you get a lot of shots. The question is, are they getting more quality shots? Are they getting better opportunities on goal in these losses, but these close competitive losses?
They are. They're starting to cycle the puck a little bit. They're learning to play physical. They have a lot of guys who are small. They're not a big team. And I think they're learning how to kind of scrap against those bigger defensemen, keep the puck in the offensive zone, and, have those periods of sustained pressure. And that's the other thing, if you're kind of looking for reasons to be optimistic, is they have some freshmen who are really playing well. Ryan Kerwin, been awesome. He's a bigger guy. He's got an NHL level shot. He can really fill the net with pucks. And they've got a duo of Ben Schoen and Danny Geniev, who are little guys. I don't think either of them is 5'8". I think they're both very small. I don't have their measurements in front of me, but they're tiny. And they were awesome this weekend. They were really good. So, there are some bright lights future wise, I guess. And those are the guys that are kind of spurring the improvement in play. So as far as this season, it's kind of looking like they probably have to win the Big Ten tournament if they want a postseason berth. And we know that's not super likely. They're going to have to do all of it on the road too,
right?
Which unlikely, but you never say never. But definitely looking forward to next season, because it does seem like they have some guys who can carry the program forward.
Well, we'll keep up to date on that, and we'll be checking in with you as the season comes to an end. It's weird to say, it's February now, so a lot of stuff is going to be wrapping up. Basketball in its final month, wrestling in its final month before the tournaments arrive. So stick here with BWI as we follow all of that. And especially here on the BWI Daily Edition, make sure you subscribe to YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching the video, make sure you give it a like, because, we're working hard. We got you great music. We're keeping the show fresh in the off season, talking about and doing a bunch of different things. So appreciate the support here on BWI on YouTube, and, of course, wherever you get your podcasts. I always feel like I throw that in the end, wherever you get your podcasts. There's like thousands of people that listen on podcast form, but because I'm on camera, I treat it like a TV show first. Anyway, let's get to the Senior Bowl, because practice started yesterday. A couple notable things happened this week with the game and with practices. So what was the thing that stuck out to you yesterday with the news coming out of Mobile?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Jahan Dotson is going to play.
Right.
Which I guess is really the big news. Not really sure why. It doesn't seem like there's an explanation there. But, if you're Jahan Dotson, I think your NFL stock is pretty well secure. So if you're not 100%, if you're not sure, I don't know that there's a whole lot of reason to risk it in a scrimmage. T. Frank, you're kind of the draft guy. I mean, do you agree with that? It just kind of seems needless.
So the part, if he's not there whatsoever, that would be surprising, because the thing that he and Arnold Ebiketie and Jaquan Brisker, I thought what was important for them would be being around the talent evaluators, being around the GMs and the scouts, and having an opportunity to interact with coaches and, get your personality, who you are, out to
Right.
those organizations, because a lot of guys will make big decisions about your draft stock based on who you are, because they know your physical potential. They can see all of those things on film. And that would be the biggest thing I thought was important for Jahan and for Brisker. But Brisker decided to decline the invitation altogether. And, I think you can do all these things later in the season. You can do them at the combine. You can do them at personal workouts and things like that. But it does give you an advantage of getting more time in front of scouts. That's about it.
Right.
Because
Right.
he would have been really good. I said this earlier. Would have been really good in individual drills. I didn't even expect him to play in the game. I just expected him to be there and participate in practices and be around. So not being there at all is not a huge difference. But that's kind of where I land on Dotson with his opt out. The thing that I thought was interesting, and we had this conversation last week as they were doing their grand rollout, that Jessie Lukeda, listed as a linebacker, weighs in during the heights and weights at 261 pounds. So, okay, we need to have another conversation about Jessie Lukeda at the Senior Bowl. He's making all the right decisions, I think. What are you expecting out of the guy that I think needs this the most? He and Tariq Castro-Fields need this week the most. What are you expecting out of him when it comes to his performance this week and then in the game?
Well, I would be expecting him to play defensive end, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what his being listed as a linebacker means for that. I don't really know if that matters. I don't. Again, not really super in tune, I guess, with what the positional designations at the Senior Bowl mean. But certainly, I mean, just talking about or listening to James Franklin and former Penn State defensive coordinator Brent Pry and all these guys talk about Jessie Lukeda, one of the reasons that he was playing defensive end for Penn State was because they feel like that's where his professional future is. And Jessie Lukeda himself has said that. So for him to play a linebacker at the Senior Bowl doesn't really add up to me. So I guess my guess would be that there's just some smudging of the lines going on to get him in there, and he's going to play defensive end. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So this is the All-Pro Pro Bowl voting conversation about linebackers or defensive ends, and people want to be so very distinct about 3-4 versus 4-3. And while I think he can be sort of multiple in a 3-down front and be a linebacker, sort of, and if you want to make that annoying distinction between an edge rusher that has a 2-point stance and an edge rusher that has his hand in the dirt, okay, then he's a linebacker. Fine. But his primary job better be going after the quarterback and going forward through the offensive line, which makes him an edge defender or a defensive end. Whatever you want to call the designation, it's a bit about the semantics there. So, yeah, if he on first down is lined up as a Mike linebacker who rushes the quarterback in any situation where it's a pass, okay. And then on situational downs, some versatility there, he's a defensive end. And you're right. This is absolutely fudging it so that you can get another defensive end who can get to the quarterback and has a little bit of multiplicity so you can call him a linebacker. But the question is going to be, for Jessie Lukeda, does being 261 make him better at getting to the quarterback? Because Arnold Ebiketie, this is a guy we haven't even talked about yet. We'll get to him in a second. He was the guy, 54 pressures at the quarterback. Nobody else got over 20 for Penn State last year. Jessie Lukeda has to prove that he can rush the passer to make all of this matter. And that's the part where he's going to work on that this offseason, and part of that is getting up to the size necessary to play the position. So we'll find out. That's what he needs to do in this particular game. Arnold Ebiketie, how much do you think he needs this week for his draft stock?
I think he's one of those guys where it matters. He's not a locked in anywhere, right? He's one of those guys where, if he has a big Senior Bowl, he has a big combine, he has a big pro day, you feel like he can really propel himself up the draft boards, at least to me. Because look, he had an awesome season. But before that, he was a little bit of an unknown entity. So Yeah, I think it's big. I think it matters for him, definitely. He's a guy that kind of just burst on the scene, and now he's on the radar. And now that he's on the radar, he's getting a chance to get in front of the guys that are, maybe make or break his draft stocks. So definitely, I think an important week for him. And you can probably say the same about a few of the other guys there, Tariq Castro Fields, those type of guys. But yeah, I think it matters for him. I don't think he's at the point, in the hierarchy where it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a formality.
I want to throw this in here. I apologize doing this on the fly because I thought this was rather important when we look at his draft profile. This is from the Senior Bowl. Their heights and weights that they have. 34-inch arms. Oh my gosh. 6'2", 250 with 34-inch arms and an 82-inch wingspan. With the production he put up on the field.
Yeah.
I don't know, that was the only thing he had to do was show up and have really long arms. That's why he's a successful pass rusher. I mean, that's why he's a successful pass rusher, plus all the work he put in, being incredibly efficient with his hands, having great moves, strength through all of that stuff, but his profile fits the position. He's a guy that could dominate this week in individual drills because he's a guy that dominated individual drills every time he got him when we were in practice, and he dominated on the football field. So I think this week could change his draft stock to where maybe he's a second-round pick to he's a high second-round pick. And at the Combine, if he puts up a 40 time and some other metrics, I have a hard time keeping him out of the first round. You want to get to the quarterback. Just make no mistake about it. You want to get to the quarterback, and you'll overvalue those for a guy that's 250.
Right.
And it does, his run defense, I think, was hit or miss. But when he could make guys miss with his hand usage, because this is the thing that I always get of Odafe Owe. I wouldn't say that he had a great first season in the NFL. He got a volume of pressures as one of the guys for Baltimore. But his hand usage against the run was spectacular in college. And people kept telling me, he's raw as a football player. He doesn't know how to get to the quarterback. I'm like, I think raw's the wrong word because he knows how to use his hands as a football player. So it's just implementing that as a pass rusher. The same thing is in reverse for Arnold Ebiketie, where he's really good at slipping blocks. And when he can slip blocks in the run game, I don't have any problems with that. I don't have any problems with the guy that's okay in run defense, but on third down, he's going to go get Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Look at
do we even care? Do we care if you can defend the run in the NFL anymore, man? Look at these absolute weapons that are at quarterback for at this point 6 or 8 NFL teams. I mean, disrupt that, please. If you can't stop Derrick Henry for one game and you lose the game, fine, but it's stop the quarterbacks.
Kansas City rushed 3 players. I'm sorry. The Bengals rushed 3 players. They had an 8-man coverage unit against Patrick Mahomes. That's how they won the game. And they got pressure with 3 and sometimes 4, and the 4th was the defensive end spying the quarterback. So, and there's I kind of look at it as at the running back position. I've seen teams that are woeful at running back, and it does hurt your team. You can't be too much of one thing. But if you're going to emphasize something, emphasize getting after the quarterback. And I cannot emphasize it enough. Arnold Ebiketie is the best pass rusher from a technical standpoint to come out of Penn State. He's a ready-made pass rusher, and I'm including all the freaks that came out over the last couple of years. So in Mobile, I think he cements that, but he's another guy that I don't think needs to play in the game. He's going to play in the game, it looks like, but cool. Last guy we haven't mentioned, Tariq Castro Fields. And, of course, we haven't mentioned Jordan Stout, another guy who's a phenomenal punter. I think his path is pretty clear this week. But what do you think from the guy who probably needs the Senior Bowl the most is Tariq Castro Fields? What are you expecting from him this week, and what has been your read on how he fits into the offseason picture in the draft?
Yeah, he's an interesting one because while I think he was reliable for the most part, I don't think he was spectacular for Penn State this season. And he's also older, right? He's a guy who used that 5th-year option. So he's got some convincing to do, I would say. And yeah, it's a big week for him. He's got to do well in those individual drills. I think he should probably like play in the game. He's got to impress. So yeah, definitely he's the one that I think you've got circled and underlined here.
Yeah.
If you're a Penn State fan, just kind of trying to track these guys, I think he's the most important watch this weekend.
Do you think so? There was a lot of talk in his career about injuries, especially in 2020, being a part of the story. How do you factor that into his career at Penn State and what ultimately became of it? Of a guy, we talked about this with Nate, of very high expectations that the coaching staff was ecstatic they got him in his draft class as a late flip. With all of that aside, how do you feel injuries kind of played a role in his, and do you give that a weight when it comes to his performance late in his career?
I definitely do. I think he was mostly healthy last season. Yeah. It seemed like it to me anyway, but the season before, obviously, I think he missed more than half the year. And I think people forget that the season before that, he was hampered by injury as well. And that was the year he just kind of got hammered online because he got burnt a couple times, but he was definitely playing hurt. I think it was pretty apparent. So yeah, I think you have to factor it in. I think what we saw this season is probably closer to what he is, when he's healthy. Maybe he starts to maybe add a little bit more athleticism now that he's further away from the injury. I don't know what the injury was, so it's you can speculate a little bit, but
right.
Yeah, I think we have an accurate picture of Treecastre Fields, and that's what you got to use to kind of inform your opinion. I think he was a good player for Penn State last season. Whether you want to criticize him for not being, like one of the best corners in college football, I think that might be a little bit of an unreasonable expectation. But he's definitely someone that seems like the fans are split on. But taking last season into account and all that he's been through, I think he's somebody that you should feel positively about if you're a Penn State fan.
Last thing, I always want to make sure I ask you this stuff. What are you working on this weekend? What are some of your thoughts about whatever that we can read over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com?
Going to be writing some basketball today. Big game. So we're going to do some follow-up coverage, try to get some basketball recruiting stuff up on the site, working on that. So that's kind of my focus. Tomorrow we've got James Franklin. He's speaking for the first time in a while. So definitely have coverage from that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm headed. My general direction. We'll see where it takes me. But that's what you got to look out for, I would say.
Well, make sure you check that out, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. Coming up, the traditional signing day. Penn State is in on one prospect that we'll inform you about, Vega Ione. We'll see what happens, and that'll be part of the show tomorrow, part of our coverage over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. You can sign up for just $1. Link is in the description. I can't believe I waited till the end of the show, to the outro music, to say that. Sign up, Blue White Illustrated, so you don't miss anything from the guys over on the website. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. We'll talk to you tomorrow.